Good afternoon and good morning to you all. We're pleased to welcome you to this fifth webinar session hosted by the Secretariat of the Asia Pacific GPP Network on guidelines for energy efficient lighting. My name is Sophie Loueyraud and I work in the Sustainable Public Procurement team at UNEP. And to open today's session, we will first hear a few words of welcome from my colleagues of the Secretariat, from Ms. Jaeyeon Choi, who is a program officer at KEITI, the Korea Environmental Industry and Technology Institute, and from Mr. Mushtaq Memon, who is the regional coordinator for resource efficiency at UNEP Asia Pacific Office. We will then continue with presentations from our two main speakers today, who are my colleagues from the United for Efficiency Initiative, Ms. Soledad Garcia and Mr. Bruno Lafitte. After which we will have a short question and answer session, and we will ask you to please share your questions via the chat box. And we will close the webinar with a few words from my colleague, Mr. Farid Yaker, who is the program officer in charge of the Sustainable Public Procurement Portfolio at UNEP. We would like you to please also note that the webinar is being recorded and the recording will be accessible from the Asia Pacific GPP Network webpage on the UNEP website. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Jaeyeon Choi from KT.
Hi, good afternoon from Korea. Thank you, Sophie, for introducing me, and thank you everyone for participating in this webinar. And my special thanks goes to the GPP network, Mushtaq and Sophie for hosting this webinar. And I also like to thank Ms. Garcia and Mr. Lafitte for presenting today. And I'm looking forward to listening to the presentations on the issue of energy efficient lighting. Korean Ministry of Environment and KT, the enforcement organization, is also putting a lot of effort on research and development and policy implementation on energy efficiency technologies. And we believe energy efficient lighting is a key component in considering residential energy policies, which also leads to realizing just transition and environmental justice. Therefore, I believe today's webinar will help us to grasp the practical tools, such as technical guidelines and regulations, to achieve energy efficiency in the specific area of lighting. So I'm looking forward to the fruitful webinar session today, and also looking forward to questions and answer session. And I hope it's a very fruitful time for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jaeyeon. Now, Mushtaq.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. So thank you to the KT because they are supporting us for many years to promote green public procurement or sustainable public procurement in the region. And with the great partnership, we have traveled quite a bit. And as we see that many countries in the region, they have picked up the green public procurement or sustainable public procurement as one of the important tools, not only for SDGs, because it's a SDG 12.7 itself, so they have to, like many countries have to report on that one as well, but more important to achieve their broader socio-economic and environmental objectives. For example, this stimulus packages, because I'm also the global coordinator on the COVID-19 waste management for UNEP. So we have seen the green recovery out of the COVID, and a lot of a green recovery is to support the energy sector and especially the energy efficiency as today we are here. So again, there's a lot of public procurement or the support from the government. So this is, I think, is very relevant also because of the COVID green recovery today's session. So we will learn that how the countries can adopt or to promote this as green public procurement or sustainable public procurement for the energy efficiency to achieve the climate change, to achieve the resource efficiency and sustainable consumption and production, but more important, the green recovery out of COVID. So thank you very much, and over to you, Sophie.
Thank you very much, Mushtaq. Now I will give the floor to our main speakers today, Ms. Soledad Garcia and Mr. Bruno Lafitte.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Good afternoon to everyone. Just to say hello, just 1 second. Hello to everyone. Thank you very much, Sophie, for organizing this webinar today. Thank you very much, everyone that is listening at the other side of the computer. My name is Soledad Garcia. I'm part of the United for Efficiency team. I'm a project coordinator of some of our energy efficiency projects. And with my colleague, Bruno Lafitte, we would like to give this presentation of E4E work and some of the tools and resources that we have related to SPP. So I will switch the camera 1 second off and I'll put the presentation. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, very well. If you can go to presentation mode.
Yes. Okay, there. Okay. So, oh, sorry. Okay, there. So for those that may not know about U4E, United for Efficiency, it's a global initiative led by UN Environment, funded by the Global Environment Facility and supported by a wide range of leading global companies and organizations. We provide independent and tailored technical support to countries to accelerate the transformation of their markets to higher efficiency lighting appliances and equipment to attain substantive financial and CO2 emission savings. We support the second goal of the C4All UN Secretary Initiative, which is to double the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency. So a transition to higher efficiency products make possible to achieve savings on the electricity bills, increasing the purchasing power of end users, to release power generation capacity, allowing countries to better respond to growing energy demand and meet economic or environmental objectives. On the other hand, the replacement for energy efficient equipment help business to strive towards higher productivity, and last but not least, reduces CO2 emission and air pollution, contributing towards meeting the 2 degrees climate target. So we focus on 5 products: lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, electric motors, and distribution transformers, which together consume more than 50% of the global electricity. U4E fulfills this mission through what we call the integrated policy approach, which encompasses these 5 areas or topics that you can see here on screen. Standards and regulations, mainly the minimum energy performance standards or the MAPs. Then supporting policies, which includes labeling schemes and communication campaigns. Also monitoring, verification and enforcement, financial mechanisms, and environmental zone management. So I really like this graph because this shows very clearly how all these topics relate with each other. So let's say that in a typical market, which is unregulated, there's a variety of products that are available for sale. And of course, some will be worse performing, less energy efficient than others. So we'll start with the development or the update, because of course this depends on the situation of each country, of the maps, to ban the inefficient products from entering the market. Afterwards, for consumers to differentiate the efficiency of the remaining products and promote the most efficient ones, we propose a labeling scheme. And of course, such products usually are a little bit more pricey, are more expensive, and therefore we develop different financial mechanisms and incentives with banks and local financial institutions to bridge this price gap and to make them more affordable for the end user. It doesn't make sense to have maps if there's not going to be an MBE system in place that oversees the market and ensures that the products comply with those map standards. So this component, what includes is working with laboratories and testing facilities on testing standards, methodologies, custom controls, different tools and resources like tracking tools, product registration system, custom codes, and so on. So last but not least, environmental zone management for the proper recollection and final disposal of all those products that we are taking out of the market and that usually contain hazardous materials like mercury or refrigerant gases, foams, etc. So by following all these steps, we make sure that the market transformation is going to be robust and sustainable over time. Well, as I mentioned before, we are supported by a wide range of partners from the industrial sector, like main global manufacturers and industrial associations, to technical organizations, regional governmental institutions, and of course the donors and implementing agencies, including from the other agencies from the UN family. So we are present in more than 30 countries with both national and regional projects. These are our national projects currently. And we provide support at different levels. At the national level, we do the development of national strategies, trainings for policymakers, implementation of technical assistance, and the development of proposals, projects, fundraising support, etc. On the regional side, with the development of regional market assessments, delivery of capacity building for policymakers, and regional harmonization projects. And finally, at the global level, with a wide range of tools and resources that are available for policymakers, such as policy guides, procurement specifications, guidelines, mall regulation, the country saving assessment for more than 155 countries, etc. So, for example, the model regulation guideline, which I just mentioned, contains a set of minimum performance requirements to start this transformation process of the market. So MEPS, just to define it somehow, is the combination of policy measures which define the minimum efficiency level and quality criteria which products must satisfy to be commercialized in a market, in a country. So, for example, if we have a look at this graph, we see that the blue line, this one, I don't know if you can see the arrow, shows what is the number of units, the distribution of the number of units in a given market, which is ranging from low energy efficient to high energy efficiency products. With implementation of the maps, what we do is to ban a section of this market, and we push the curve towards the more efficient models, and we increase the offer of such products that make the cut in order to compensate the loss of this initial market portion. If on top of that, we add the labeling scheme, we can classify the products based on the energy efficiency performance and promote the most efficient ones. And that is why we see that the curve is leaning again towards the right. And we can give a step forward to make to be more ambitious with the energy efficiency levels. And here's where SPP has a fundamental role to push the curve even further towards the higher energy efficiency end, which would be this green line. So sustainable power procurement practices have the ability to greatly support the market transformation from any country by implementing more stringent performance levels and eco-design requirements in their public purchases. This translates, of course, to more energy and financial savings from states and semi-state entities, while also reducing their environmental footprint. But also it stimulates the private sector and fosters the consumer's behavior change by setting the example. So this is very important. Currently, SPP is not sufficiently embedded in sectoral policies, and therefore U4E has developed a new series of guidelines to provide a set of technical specifications to develop the requirements for procuring higher energy efficiency alternatives. So these guidelines are intended for public procurers, lighting, cooling technical personnel, policymakers, and any other related officers that are involved in this type of activities. The scope of the guidelines range from lighting, which Bruno will explain in a few minutes, for office and street lighting. And we have another 2 guidelines for cooling appliances, refrigerators, and room air conditioners. Additionally, we have other tools such as the toolkit guideline, which is a guideline that provides key considerations for the tendering process. This includes environmental, social, and economic considerations like economic analysis of different delivery models and overall recommendations for all the process. And for our cooling products, we have an SPP Excel spreadsheet tool, which helps policymakers by comparing the different bids, so they can compare the economic cost and environmental impact because of the GWP of cooling products. So they can easily check which bid complies with the requirements and which option is more suitable. So before I hand over to my colleague Bruno, I would like to quickly show you this graph. Here we can see the saving potential of higher efficiency products, well, lighting. And this is a graph that represents 156 countries. So what we see is the projection of the electricity consumption from lighting, of course, between 2020 and 2030. So we have 3 scenarios: the business as usual, which is the gray line that you can see here on the graph, which means that everything stays as we know it today without any new policies. Then we have a minimum ambition scenario, which is the blue line, which means what would be the consumption with the implementation of MEPs. And by MEPs, we refer to those that are recommended in the MAL regulation guideline. And a third scenario, the high ambition scenario, the green line, in case we are more ambitious. And in this case, it would fit the SPP practices. So by implementing this type of policies, this type of technical specifications and recommendations, we expect to achieve substantial savings by 2030. This is the savings that you can see on the right. Annual savings on the electricity consumption for almost 200 terawatts hour. which is equivalent to the construction of 88 power plants, savings of $16 billion on the electricity bill, and 117 million of CO2 emissions avoided. So this is part of the country saving assessment, and I encourage you to have a look to the country saving assessment of your country. You can access to this documents in our webpage, and you will have all the links at the end of the presentation. So with this in mind, with this savings in our mind, I would like to pass the word to my colleague Bruno Lafitte, so he can explain more in detail the different elements of the SPP lighting guideline. So thank you very much, Sophie.
Thanks a lot. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, very well, Bruno.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, great. So thanks a lot for hearing me, for listening to me. Should I share my screen? Maybe it will be easier. Okay.
Yes, please do.
I do that. Okay. So now you can see my screen, right?
Yes, very well.
Okay, I go in presentation mode. So I thank you all for this great opportunity to present our SPP guidelines for green public procurement on for energy efficient lighting. I will now switch off the camera if I may. What's happening here? I cannot switch off my camera. But maybe you can switch it off. If you don't want to see my face, you can switch it off yourself. Sorry, we don't have too much time, so
It's fine. Thank you, Bruno. We'll be happy to see you while you present.
No, sorry. Look at the slides first. Those are more important than my face. So the green public procurement guideline content is we did it for indoor lighting with LED luminaires, LED tubes, and also for outdoor lighting. And in outdoor lighting, we address poles, street lighting poles, basically, and we will differentiate between low power poles and high power poles. We'll see why. And here you can see a bunch of all parameters that we include in the SPP. Of course, some are more important than others, so we'll see it later. But first, we see on the top left minimum efficacy. The minimum efficacy of the device is quite important. Minimum lifetime, of course, photometry, color temperature, color rendering are important. You have flickering stroboscopic, voltage range, some on electrical behavior, let's say, of those devices, fundamental power factor, surge protection, harmonic distortion, and so on and so on. And in green, you see on the bottom line, you see a green square with performance criteria. This is not direct technical criteria for the product itself, but it's for you to check that your installation, what is proposed by the company is right, is good overall the installation, not only the device but all device together to give you the light that you need, if it's quite good enough. So minimum efficacy first parameter for indoor luminaires and LED tubes. We have for LED tubes model regulation at U4E, but here we go further. for SPP guideline, Green Public Procurement Guidelines. So you must be an example. That's really important for driving the market. And so we have, depending on the year of implementation, because we get that in some countries it can take years before the decision is made of implementing a green procurement guideline, and that's perfectly normal. If you implement it in 2022, you must go for at least 130 lumen per watt. This is the efficacy of the LED tube. And in 2026, of course, you go to higher efficacy because it's improving a lot with time. So you can claim higher efficacy, and 170 should be what is in the tender document. For LED luminaire, you see an example of LED luminaire indoor lighting still. It depends on the year of implementation, but also what you see on the left side of the table, the table on the bottom, you can see the flux bandwidth. This is the quantity of light that is emitted by the luminaire in lumen. Lm is for lumen, the flux, the flux of light, visible light. So the quantity of light that is produced. And when you have a luminaire with a low quantity of light, you don't have the same efficacy as in a luminaire with a high quantity of light. So it means for the first bandwidth, from 60 lumen phi is the flux to 600 lumens, you can claim 110 lumen per watt in 2022. But for luminaire with a flux higher than 1200 lumens, you can claim 130 lumen per watt. So hopefully it's clear, otherwise we will see with questions. For now, for outdoor luminaires, for street lighting, we did differentiate low power luminaire with, you see the first table is for power of the luminaire is below 90 watt, and the second table is higher than 90 watt. Below 90 watt, those luminaires are mainly used for park places, urban roads, and not big areas, no roadway, and so on. So you can see a picture on the right of a typical luminaire, and that kind of luminaire don't have. Oh, you have here the same efficacy. So maybe there's a mistake in the table. We have to correct it, but the efficacy should be quite similar, but a little bit lower for luminaire with 190 watt compared to luminaire with power higher than 90 watt. Yes, the presentation will be given to you. For sure. So second parameter, which is very important, is lifetime. Because we often forget it. We go for high efficient products, that's great, but we forget to talk about lifetime. And lifetime is very important for lighting. In the way it's not defined as when it's broken, when it doesn't emit light, and when it's broken, that's definitely end of life. But lighting uses lighting sector is using a different definition. A lamp or a luminaire is end of life, is shouldn't be used anymore when it doesn't produce light enough. I mean, when the amount of light that is produced by the luminaire is not sufficient to procure the right amount of visibility. When you don't have light enough, you have to replace it. And typically, here you can see, you can read the sentence, but I explain to you in words. Typically, when the luminaire or the source, the light source, has lost 30% of its initial flex. You can see here it has lost 30%. We consider that we have to replace it. So this is the end of life, and this is happening typically for LED at few tens of thousand hours here, 50,000 hours. So for indoor lighting, we could ask for a lifetime higher than 20,000 hours, and for street lighting, 50,000 hours is quite reasonable right now. And a second parameter also is here this parameter is L70. We say lumen 70% remaining. But another parameter important is B here. This parameter B is when you have a lot of bunch of lamps. Maybe you are buying 1,000 lamps and installing 50 lamps on a road, for an example. B50 is okay. We consider that all the lamps are end of life and we replace it when at least 50% of all the lamps are emitting lower than 70% of the flex. So that's how is defined the end of life for lighting products in most of the regulations all over the world. And this is normalized by IEC and so on. Lifetime, also an important thing about lifetime is how to test it, and especially for LED luminaire. You have outdoor LED luminaire. Mostly it's outdoor LED luminaire with integrated light sources or with separate modules. A module is here. This is you must think of it like a lamp. This is a lamp that you replace basically in your luminaire. So either you can replace it and remove it from the luminaire to replace to when it's over. Either you cannot, and if you can or cannot, there are different norms. I won't go into details. You will have the slides, but to test for the lifetime. Okay. So the third parameter, this is more for outdoor lighting. That one. Photometry. This is the upward lumen ratio. This is the quantity of light that is emitted upward the luminaire, and of course, because this is street lighting, and the luminaire is at, let's say, 6 or 8 meters above your head. When it's upward, it's lost. It's spoiled light, spoiled, but also it can be light pollution, and that's not good. So we have to put a criteria to say, okay, take care you don't have unwanted light, spoiled light, because when you spoil light, you spoil energy, of course, and this is light pollution. So this is the parameter. Also, light quality is quite important because you can have a very efficient light source, but with low quality of light, and this is not what you want, because you want that the right light at the right quality, so it gives you the right service, and people will be happy with that light. So for light quality, you have different parameters. Correlated color temperature is one parameter on the left side. It goes from the color temperature is measured in Kelvin. In Kelvin, for 2000 Kelvin, you see you have warm light, white light, still white light, let's say white reddish light, that is quite warm. We call it warm light. But for color temperature at around 6000 Kelvin, we call it cold white light, bluish light. This is really depending on what do you prefer in your country. In European country, for an example, we go for warm white light. In Pakistan, for an example, I was working in Pakistan recently and even yesterday. They like cold white light. So it really depends on what you prefer in your country, but keep it in mind, please. One thing that is not depending on your country is color rendering index, and color rendering index is a measure of the ability of light source to reveal the color, the real color of object, as you can see it on the sunshine in the daylight. Here you can see this is the same fruits with different light that are existing on the market. This is high pressure sodium, this is xenon, this is low pressure sodium, this is a special lamp. And this is, of course, when you can see when you can see the real color of the different fruits here. So you have a color rendering index of 100, let's say. So our recommendation is for indoor lighting. There is also here the CRI is here, so it should be 80, more than 80 for indoor lighting and more than 70 for street lighting, and the color temperature should be that line. I will modify the slides before sharing it. For indoor lighting, you must have a color rendering, a color temperature less than 6,000 Kelvin. Of course, it depends on your country. But for street lighting, for avoiding light pollution, that's very important that you are lower than 5,000 kelvins. This is very important because if you have a bluish light for street lighting, you have a lot of light pollution. And light pollution is not good for you, for humans, but also for animals. And if you want to see the stars at night also, that you have to limit light pollution. Two other parameters, I will go quickly on that. This is the quality of light still, and those are quite new parameters that we did include in international regulation very recently. The flickering, because with LED we can have a lot of flickering. It means perception of visual unsteadiness included by a statistic light stimulus. Well, you can see the official definition, but you know what is flickering. And here you can see flickering when you see the light on and off, and this induces a lot of perturbance. And here you can see the old metric. This is not the new metric, but just to illustrate, here you can see a lot of light, low light, and so on. So it's pulsing, let's say, and so we have a metric for measuring that, and we say that PST LM should be inferior to 1 at full load and sinusoidal input voltage. Inferior to 1 means that 1 is half of the population can perceive the flickering. Second parameter that is quite new also in lighting regulation is stroboscopic effect. For indoor lighting, we consider it's important for all light, but more for indoor lighting. So our advice is to limit the stroboscopic effect. Of course, you know what is stroboscopic effect. You can see the real speed of the object because of the light, and so you can see a picture. But so this is not very harmful. This can be even quite beautiful picture. But this can be a real problem in industry, for an example, when you have some machines that are turning and the operator doesn't see it turning because of the light, and it did happen, and so you have a bad accident due to stroboscopic effect. The metric is SVM the stroboscopic visibility measure, and SVM equal to 1 is when half of the population has the probability of detecting stroboscopic effects. Our advice is to limit SVM to 0.9 at full load right now, and from 1st of September 2024 to limit at 0.4 at full load. And why that? Because in the European regulation, and Europe is a wide market, we have those limits. And what means that if you, that products are existing, so you can buy some products like this, and if you don't put those limits in your tendering document, you will have the junk products, and we want to avoid it. So the operational voltage range now is we jump from one parameter to the other, but you will still have question to ask at the end, maybe. It's quite important for countries when the voltage supply is not that stable. So our advice is, well, you can read what is written here, but you understand what I mean. For indoor luminaires, we ask for an operating voltage range. It means under what condition the luminaire should be able to provide light, from 160 volt alternative to 250, and for outdoor luminaire the same. So this is when the supply is not that stable, and it's quite useful. Okay, so next slide. Okay, the fundamental power factor now. Maybe some of you have heard about the power factor. The power factor is a measure that is quite important for the utilities in different countries. Now we speak about the fundamental power factor. This is a bit easier than power factor. This is called the displacement factor. Here you can see, to illustrate it, you can perfectly understand the voltage and current with time. There's a phase between voltage and current. There is a displacement factor, and actually this is a fundamental power factor. And that difference of phase between voltage and current create some reactive power on your line. And reactive power is not useful power. You use only active power on your line, but this is power that cannot be used, and that is annoying because you have to over-dimension your wire, your supply, and so on. And it has a bad effect on the power supply network, so you must limit that reactive power. And you limit that reactive power by limiting the phase shift between voltage and current here. When you limit that phase shift, you limit the reactive power. But the fundamental power factor is not exactly that phase shift, it's a cosinus of that phase shift. So the cosinus is higher when the cosinus of phi is higher when phi is lower. You know the cosinus of 0 is 1, and the cosinus of 90 is 0. And in between you have all value. So you want phi lower, phi lower means a cosinus quite high, next to 1. And that's what we have here for indoor lighting. Depending on the power of the luminaire for indoor lighting, you have limits. Those are quite standard limits that we have in our regulation. So higher than 0.5, 0.7, 0.9, depending on the power. And for outdoor lighting, because power is higher than 25 watts, you have a minimum of 0.9 for the fundamental power factor. Now for surge protection and harmonic distortion, so surge is for lightning, for an example. We recommend you to follow the IEC standard recommendations, and here you have the two recommendations with limits for harmonics, for an example. This is harmonics disturbance on your sine wave. This is due to harmonics, and you can limit it, and you have the limits in that standards. Now you must think about safety also. You must ensure that if people are touching the luminaire, for an example, in indoor lighting, they don't have electrical shock. And for that we have indexes, and we have a classification of luminaires, and we recommend that luminaires are of class 2 for outdoor luminaires, and even for indoors luminaires. This is in the Word document. This is just an explanation here. Okay. You have also ingress protection. Ingress protection is to avoid that people are touching inside the luminaire and damaging the luminaire, touching or solid object or dust, and also protection against moisture, against humidity. This is the ingress protection, and the classification is with the IP code. We ingress protection is IP, and IP code. For the IP code, you have two numerals. First numeral is protection against dust, solid objects. So from 0, no protection, to 6, dust tight luminaires. And the second numeral is for moisture. And it goes from 0, no protection, to 9, protected against high pressure and temperature, water jet proof. And for an example, 8 is luminaire in swimming pool under the water. So you have from 0 to 9. What our advice is to respect. So this is just explanation. There's a table at the end that gives you the value. But for outdoor lighting, our advice is to have 65, and for indoor lighting, 20 is sufficient. You will see the table at the end with all the values. Now, the impact resistance. The impact resistance, we use the parameter IK, and the value is depending on, well, here you have all the phrasing, what it means. This is an armor with a height of 350 millimeters, and so on and so on. But you must don't go into details. You should keep those values. Minimum 5 for indoor luminaire and minimum 8 for outdoor luminaire. So you're quite sure that your luminaire is resistant to impact. Humidity and corrosion. So here is definition of humidity and corrosion. And this is quite important in, I don't know in your country, but in some countries I'm working in, you have a lot of humidity, and even you can have a lot of corrosion due to the salt. For an example, if you are next to the sea, you have corrosion due to salt, sorry, and you can have a lot of humidity also in some countries next to the equator, for an example, or whatever. So you should protect, you should ensure that your luminaire is able to work at those conditions, and that's why we advise that all luminaires you see on the bottom, all luminaires should be humidity proof, where humidity conditions may occur in normal use, following the test from the IEC, the standards IEC, so 60,598 one. You have a humidity test that is required for luminaire. So they should follow that test. Okay. Now we were talking. Okay, let me have a look. Yes. Okay, we were talking until now about technical specifications for luminaires. Now we will talk about how can we use that luminaire in an efficient way. Because you can have a high-end luminaire, but if you don't use it in the right way, you will consume a lot and you won't have the right light at the right moment for you and the right level. So first, we talk about dimming and occupancy control. Dimming is when, for example, this is for outdoor, but it can be done for indoor, of course. This is here the hour, so the evening here. This is evening, the afternoon, then 6 p.m., 8 p.m., this is midnight, 1 a.m., so this is night, 2 a.m. until 7 a.m. So here during the evening, let's say it's winter, so it's dark at 6. So you switch on your light. You switch on your light at 100% at 6 p.m. And because you need that light, there's people in the streets, so they need that light. So you let the light on at 100% till 11 p.m. But after 11 p.m., you have quite nobody in the street. People are at home and they spend their evening at home. And at past 11 p.m., you have nobody in the street. So you say, okay, I can dim my light. So you still have light for safety reason, for an example, in the street. But I can dim the level because it's not that important that people are seeing each other very close. People are far away and cars are, you don't have too much cars, for example, too much people in the street. So they have time to see each other. You don't have to have a full amount of light. So you dim your light. And this is perfectly reasonable at 50% at 11 p.m. and until 5 p.m., 5 a.m., sorry, when people are going out from home to go to work and until 7 a.m. So this is dimming, and you can do that. You reduce the amount of light, so you reduce also the consumption of your luminaire, and you can save about 25% of energy just doing that, just because you don't need 100% of light at midnight. Now you can add another control. This is occupancy control, and this is very useful for indoor lighting, for example, a meeting room. When you have occupancy control, so the light is switching on when people are entering the room and automatically switch off when people are going out of that room. So with occupancy control, so automatic switch on and switch off depending on if people are there or not, you can save 42% of energy when you dim and occupancy control together. When you just do occupancy control, we consider you can save 20 to 25% of energy. So our advice is in your tender document to say LED lighting should be dimmed when daylight is sufficient. And LED luminaires, this is daylight sensor also, it's not here, but LED luminaires should incorporate the possibility of automatic on standby occupancy control presence detector. For street outdoor lighting, our device is to ask automatically for dimmed light at 30% at least 4 hours per night. You have from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. you dim during 6 hours. So we say at least 30% of dimming during at least 4 hours is reasonable. Of course, when you have a amount of light of 1 lux, you don't dim. Okay. Now, a performance criteria. I did promise you not only some technical parameters for luminaires, but also some performance criteria to check if your installation is correct. And you have quite simple, very simple parameters that we did for you. Is for office large buildings, we consider, and this is with experiments in a lot of buildings in a lot of countries, and not only for me, but for a lot of people, we consider that in office in large buildings, you should have a power per square meter of floor area less than 6 watt per square meter. This is an efficient lighting. If you have luminaires, you count in your room, for example, you have 4 luminaires of 25, let's say more than 20 watts each. So you have 80 watt in your room, and your room is let's say 40 square meters. Okay, so you divide 80 watt per 40, it means you have 2 watts per square meter, so that's okay. That's a good lighting. If you have 4 luminaire of 20 watt in a 40 square meter room, that's good. Okay, clear? For street lighting, we go for an even simpler criteria. This is power installed should be lower than 3 watt per linear meter per road lane. Per linear meter. So it means if you have a roadway with two road lanes, one on one side, the other on the other side, per road lane, you should have 3 watt per linear meter. So for the two sides, you should have 6 watt per meter. So on 100 meters on that road with two lines, you can have 60 watt. No, 600 watt on for your street lighting luminaires on 100 meter and for the both side. That's okay. Okay, and that applies for roadway lighting, urban lighting, and so on. At the end, for roadway lighting, you have high luminaires with height of, let's say, 12 meters, 8. Very powerful luminaire, but very high luminaires also. And for urban lighting for small roads, you are at 6 meter 8 with lower power luminaire. But at the end, if you mix it together and in real life, that parameters applies to all kind of roads. That's pretty useful, and it works pretty well. So next slide. Next slide is about warranty and maintenance. That's an important factor also. Okay, you can ask for lifetime, but you lifetime with norms to test it and so on. In the SPP document, you have all the relevant norms to ask for. Okay, but you can also go for warranty, and we consider that for indoor luminaire, a warranty of 4 years is quite reasonable, because we ask for 4 years is for indoor lighting is about 10,000 hours, and 10,000 hours is quite reasonable because your lifetime, required lifetime, is 20,000 hours. So that's quite reasonable. For outdoor luminaire now, the warranty should be of 5 years, and 5 years 5 years for normal street lighting, it's equivalent to you see 5 years or 22,000 hours. And remember, for lifetime, you ask for 50,000 hours, so half of it. The warranty, sorry, basically the warranty is half of the lifetime you did ask for. So quite important to put in your tender document. So now one slide, I'm not a specialist on that, clearly, but this is a very important task that you have to think about. The environmental sound management of the lighting device is very important, because you will replace old luminaires. Often old luminaires are discharge lamps. Discharge lamps are using mercury, and there's mercury inside. So you must really think about recycling, collecting, and proper recycling of mercury, proper disposal of mercury. So, and this is, you have the Minamata protocol on mercury, for an example, the Basel Convention, and so on. I don't know, it depends on the country, but check in your country if you ratify the Minamata protocol, the Basel Convention, and so on. And if so, you have to take care of mercury products and discharge lamps. The new luminaire, also, you must think about the end of life of luminaire, because this is waste of electronics, chip paint, and other products. For environmental sound management, not normally, but in a lot of country, you have what we call extended producer responsibility scheme. It means the producer is responsible for collecting the products that is replaced and collecting the products at end of time. So please check. If it's not the responsibility of the producer, try to include that in your tender document with the buyer of the new luminaire. So you have to find the appropriate agreements between manufacturer, seller, supplier. Also, it's a good way of comparing the proposal. The disposal cost should be included in the proposal. You must take care of that, and that's a good way to see if it will be done correctly or not. But at the end, you have to trace it. You have to have the right document that proves you that it was done. Okay, so I will let you talk about it, maybe, Soleil, or should I talk about it? Yeah, no, okay. This is basically other recommendation that we have in the toolkit, and this is not only for lighting, but also for other products. You have award criteria, and it's a good way, so you can go through it. You have different weighting factor for different parameters and so on. So it's a good way to know what parameter is the most important and how to select the right proposal. It's a systematic way to note the proposal and to compare them, the proposal. Okay. So, Soleil, if you can help me on that part, I would be happy.
Yes, sure. In the toolkit, you also have recommendations for the public procurement policy and action plan, and what this section wants to highlight is the importance of national policies and action plans that are key for implementing later the SPP technical considerations or any other procurement processes. So what is recommended in this section is that countries prepare an assessment with the cost benefit for developing standardized procurement criteria like the one that Bruno is explaining today. But in other cases, if it's not justified, it can be like a procurement based on each project. That's why it's called the project by project approach. And the action plan, what explains it's how to obtain the funds or how it can be the process for the funding. In some cases, the project already have their funds. Otherwise, they have to develop different delivery models. And in the guideline, it is explained the different models like that is split CapEx, grant and loans, ESCO. So there's a lot of different systems for funding that purchase. So you can find all the information in the toolkit guideline.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. So here is the website of United for Efficiency. You have a video. The GPP technical guidelines and specification can be found here with a lot of other tools that Soleil was talking about that just before me. You have a lot of tools on that website, model regulation and so on. So you can and this is very useful tool for you if you're not a specialist in each product, and that's perfectly normal. You have specialists that did model regulation, so minimum energy performance standards, but also some technical parameters for SPP that I did present to you, and some other tools, so that can be very useful for you to go on that website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno and Soledad, for this detailed presentation. I think that we can briefly show our attendees the United for Efficiency website, where you can find really a large range of resources focusing on different topics of green public procurement. So from the resource webpage here, you can find the country savings assessments and the publications, where you will find the SPP toolkit and also other technical guidelines for ACs, for example, or refrigerators. There is also a very interesting case study which was released on Pakistan, and how the Euphoria initiative supported the Pakistani government in the development of minimum energy efficiency standards, and also of an energy labeling system, which we will share with you after the webinar. And let me go back to see if we have any questions. I had one question to Soledad and Bruno. Is there a way for our attendees to be informed of future publication releases? Is there a specific newsletter or a mailing list, maybe?
Yeah, Indeed, we have a newsletter that it's released every 3 months. This is a quarterly newsletter. Also, we have a Twitter, YouTube. So you can have you can access to all our videos and webinars in the YouTube platform. And also in the Euphoria webpage, there's a section that's news, and usually every time we launch new guidelines or we have a webinar or anything like this, you can download all the presentations or access to the recording in this section. So again, my suggestion is to have a look at the webpage, at the website, and you can subscribe to the newsletter. So so you can catch up all our news and latest releases.
Thank you very much. And I believe that the lighting guidelines, the technical guidelines, will be released soon.
Yes, exactly. These are just now under design. So we expect this to be available at the beginning of December. So please stay tuned to the web page and the news section, and you will see the guideline to download very soon.
Thank you very much. Farid, would you like to say a few words? If Farid is not there yet, so I believe we can also briefly show the Pakistan lighting case study, which is quite interesting.
Yes, I can briefly explain about this particular project. We have, oh, there, right. Thank you so much. So just to give a little of background information about this project, this is a national project. This is funded by the GEF, an energy efficiency project just for lighting. We started, I think it was 2018, and we're going to finalize next year. So this project is a structure following the integrated policy approach, like I mentioned before. So we have a component for the development of the maps, another one on MBE, financial mechanisms, so on and so forth. We have been working with NECA, which is the National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority. It's in charge of the implementation of the project in the country. And we have recently released the very first ever minimum energy performance standards and labels for LED lighting. So this is a very important achievement. Pakistan already have a very big market for LED products, actually. It's not that the penetration of that technology was not good. It's just that they were having some issues on the quality. So sometimes we think that just by buying a LED product, then that's enough. And unfortunately, it's not, because quality might not be good. Lifetime might not be enough, and you can have like a bad experience as a consumer. Maybe the quality of the light, it's too bluish, like Bruno was explaining. So you have to have all these parameters in mind when you are saying that you have a good quality LED product. So in Pakistan, the quality of the LED products was not very good. So the MEPs really wanted to get rid of all these bad quality products, and therefore the proposal that Bruno developed was based on this. And here you can see a summary of all the technical specifications that were developed. And these were approved. Usually in this projects, we have different webinars, different well, in this case, we're webinars because of the global situation, but we have usually lots of meetings and exchanges with the national stakeholders to agree with some parameters that are ambitious, but also they are tailored to the country. I mean, it's possible for the country to implement them, because if it's too much, if it's not possible, then of course doesn't make sense. Finally, we have agreed on the maps, and this had been approved by now I don't remember the name of the committee, but well, the technical committee in charge of the national regulations, and this came finally into force in December 2020. So this was a outstanding achievement, a great step forward towards more efficiency in Pakistan, and you can find all the details of this journey in the case study that Sophie is showing, and this also can be downloaded from the U4 webpage.
Thank you very much, Soledad. Then I believe Farid has joined us and will be ready to say a few words in closing.
Thank you, Sophie. I first would like to thank our colleagues from United for Efficiency, Bruno and Soledad, for this very informative and rich webinar. We're really happy about the collaboration, because we are really making the connection with a technical area, but a very important and impactful area. So we found out that in public procurement, there was a big interest of contracting authorities for win-win solutions that allow you to make financial savings. And I think it's the case with energy efficient appliances, energy efficient lighting, because you save on your electricity bill, but in the same time you make a positive contribution to the climate, to sustainable development in general. So I think this is really the direction we want to go in the future, is really assist the procurers, the contracting authorities in better understanding what they should procure in terms of energy efficient appliances. And the work you've been doing, the guidelines you are publishing, are really going to be very useful for all procurers all around the world. And our aim is really to help you, to support you in disseminating those guidelines, this knowledge, to really help us achieve climate neutrality. So once again, thank you very much. The webinar will be available online, so I think it's going to benefit a broad audience. I'd like also to thank Sophie for organizing this wonderful event, very useful event, the great job she's doing, and of course our colleagues from KEITI, Jaeyeon, who is with us, and my colleague Mushtaq, who delivered the opening remarks. So once again, thank you, and I think we'll have other opportunities to invite you and present other guidelines that are equally useful for contracting authorities. Thank you, and see you again. See you soon.
Thank you very much. I have just shared the webpage where you can find the recordings of past webinars and speakers' presentation. And of course, we will share the additional resources after the webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a pleasant day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Merci, Bruno.